Hello everyone, my name is Zusk and welcome to another episode of Talents Guide. In this guide we're going to go over the first 10 skills of the Barbarian. I'm going to show you guys some cool clips of a Barbarian owning face, and you guys can ask any questions if you want, but otherwise enjoy this video. The first skill the Barbarian gets is Bash. Bash is automatically learned at level 1 and you can start using it right away. Bash generates 6 fury per attack and brutally smashes an enemy for 150% of the weapon damage with a 20% chance of knockback if you don't kill the enemy, assuming. If you do kill the enemy, their body parts go flying and it looks pretty cool. Bash is always going to be better than your primary attack, but aside from that, it's not really going to be that useful. The 20% chance of knockback is not really that good against stronger enemies, because if you're fighting them in a large group, you're going to be necking them back. Then you have to walk through the weaker enemies while you're getting attacked to go and attack them, but it's always going to be better than your basic attack, so just go ahead and use it till you can get something better. At level 2, the Barbarian gets Hammer of the Ancients. Hammer of the Ancients is a secondary ability that costs 20 fury per attack. What Hammer of the Ancients does is that it makes you do 200% of the weapon damage and has a 5% chance of increased crit. It also does massive AoE damage around you, and so it's basically a really nice crowd control enemy, or crowd control attack that complements Bash fairly well, as Bash is a single target and Hammer of the Ancients is Splash. You basically want to use Hammer of the Ancients against a large group of weaker enemies, and you can just kill them all in one fell swoop, assuming your weapon damage is strong enough. The third Barbarian ability is Cleave. You get this at level 3, and it's another primary attack. It generates 5 fury per attack regardless of how many enemies you hit. That's kind of important for you guys to remember. What it does is it swings your weapon in a wide arc that deals 120% weapon damage to all enemies caught in the swing. That means that if you hit 2 enemies, it already does more total damage than Bash. I like to use Cleave personally, just because if you hit 2 enemies, you're already outputting more damage than Bash, and it's also really good against just a lot of groups of weaker enemies, especially if you have a stronger weapon that one-shots all of them. Keep in mind, however, that Bash generates 6 fury per attack, while Cleave only generates 5. This difference is minor, but still noticeable. At level 4, the Barbarian learns Ground Stomp. Ground Stomp generates 15 fury and has a 12-second cooldown. What this means is that you're not going to be spamming Ground Stomp constantly, and it's just going to be used periodically in a fight. Ground Stomp has a radius of 12 yards and it stuns the enemies in that radius for 4 seconds. So basically what you want to do is cast it on a large group of units, stun in, and do as much damage as you can during the stun duration. Ground Stomp is pretty good against units that are running away, such as the Treasure Demon, or larger units, such as King Leoric. You can actually stun King Leoric with Ground Stomp. I'm not sure if it's still... The stun still lasts for 4 seconds, but it's definitely good to interrupt his attacks. Ground Stomp is especially good against a lot of weaker enemies that you want to kill quickly, but are also very fast. Because Ground Stomp generates Fury, it is a great initiating move, and should be used as much as possible. At level 5, the Barbarian learns Rend. Rend is your secondary Fury using move that costs 20 Fury per attack, and is a sweeping strike that damages all nearby enemies for 210% weapon damage as physical over 3 seconds. What this basically means is that it does an AoE dot around the Barbarian, and over time those heroes, or those enemies, slowly lose life. Now Rend isn't particularly that good. I didn't really like it too much. I preferred just using Cleave, and so we're just going to have to see how the runes affect Rend, but basic Rend is not that good in my opinion. I prefer just to kill the enemies immediately rather than watching them die within 3 seconds. This is just my preference, but if you guys like to watch your enemies bleed, feel free to use Rend. Alright guys, at level 6, Barbarian's going to unlock Clobber. Clobber is the first runic ability for Bash, and Clobber, like all rune abilities, are going to be better than the vanilla or basic Bash. And what Clobber does is, instead of knockback, it has a 20% chance to stun the target for 3 seconds. And so I like stunning a lot better, obviously, just because you don't have to chase them to go and attack them some more. Stunning the enemy also prevents them from attacking. And so it's going to be always better than Bash. If you like your single target primary active over Cleave, then go ahead and use Clobber. At level 7, the Barbarian can use Rolling Thunder. Rolling Thunder is the first runic ability for Hammer of the Ancients. It still costs 20 Fury, but what it does is it creates a shockwave behind your initial target that deals 155% weapon damage to all enemies within 22 yards in front of you. And so obviously the runic version of Hammer of the Ancients is going to be better than the vanilla Hammer of the Ancients, just because it does damage behind you. There are some abilities where that's not always the truth. It changes them a little bit, and so that's going to be preference, but in this case, Rolling Thunder is always going to be better, and it just does damage to enemies behind you. If you are fighting a lot of weak enemies in a line, this is going to be a really great move for you guys to have. At level 8, the Barbarian gets Leap. Leap is going to be your first defensive ability, which means that it's not going to replace any of the other ones just yet. It generates 15 Fury and has a 10-second cooldown, and what you do is you leap into the air, deal 85% weapon damage to all enemies within 8 yards of your destination, and slow their movement by 60% for 3 seconds. So basically, it positions you where you want to be, does a small AoE damage around you, then it slows them and prevents them from running. This is really good for getting you in the right position in order to deal maximum damage, and also to take off aggro away from your allies. Additionally, it also generates 15 Fury. This can be used really well in combination with Ground Pound. You leap in, generate 15 Fury, use Ground Pound, stun all of them around you, generate additional Fury, and then you can go ahead and use whatever Furious move you have, such as Hammer of the Ancients or Rolling Thunder at this point. Perhaps even Rend as well. Leap can also be used just to traverse terrain a little bit faster. It can also be used to jump up and down levels, although this is very inconsistent. I've tried testing it, and sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But regardless of all of that, Leap is just a great skill to have. At level 9, the Barbarian gains Ancient Spear in addition to another ability. Ancient Spear is going to be your first might ability. This means that it's not going to replace any of your existing abilities. Ancient Spear, like all the other active skills so far, generates 15 Fury and has a 10-second cooldown. What it does is it launches a Scorpion-esque spear, like in Mortal Kombat, where it pulls an enemy near you and it slows their movement by 60% and also deals 185% weapon damage. This weapon damage is actually fairly significant. If you have large, stronger enemies that you really want to come kill quickly, such as the ones that summon other units, use this and it will basically kill them very fast. Ancient Spear is also, because it generates Spear, is also good in leading up. You can use Ancient Spear, grab high priority targets, kill them, leap in with Might, and then use Ground Pound and any other moves you want to finish it up with. Also at level 9, you get the first runic ability for Cleave. Cleave is going to be the exact same thing, still generates 5 Fury, but when you kill an enemy, it causes 85% weapon damage to all enemies within an 8-yard radius. What this means is that your cleaves, whenever they kill them, are going to do massive damage to units that you kill. This is by far my favorite dungeon clearing ability, as it just kills everything so quickly and doesn't even cost Fury. It actually generates Fury for you to use some of the other fancier abilities. I really like this skill and I keep it on at all times whenever I get it. Make sure to pick up the skill at level 9, especially if you have a good weapon. You're just going to be clearing dungeons so fast. Alright guys, finally level 10 you get one of 2 passive abilities. Your first one is going to be you're going to increase the chance to find a health globe by 25%, and when you pick up those health globes you're going to get double the health from it. This is called Pound of Flesh. I really didn't find this too useful, as the Barbarian was already pretty badass with all his cleave abilities, and so I just picked the other one. The second passive ability is called Ruthless. What Ruthless does is it increases your critical hit chance by 5% and your critical hit damage increased by 50%. So you're going to crit more often, and when you crit you do 50% more damage. Many skills and runes also rely on these critical hits to trigger their effects, so it's going to be extremely helpful in just outputting higher levels of damage. Now as a Barbarian, I like to be a badass damage dealer. I really don't like to walk around with looking for health globes, and so this really fits my playstyle a lot better. If you guys like higher sustain during dungeons, feel free to pick the other passive. Alright guys, these were the first 10 skills for a Barbarian. Obviously we're going to do all the skills for all the heroes all the way up to level 60, so if you guys have any questions or comments, feel free to leave it in the section below. Otherwise, my name is Dusk, and I'll see you guys later.